Hello, friends, and welcome to That's the Tea Book Reviews. I'm Angela, your co-host, who is a creative writer and cover artist.
And I'm Emily. I am the author of the Aurelian Archive series and the Downroot volumes. Yeah.
And we are here to talk about books and drink tea. Today we are talking about a book called A Cat's Guide to Bonding with Dragons by Chris Bearson. I don't know how to say his last name, so I'm going to apologize, but it looks like Bearson. So let's go with that.
We'll go with
I,
that.
I think he might be Welsh, so I'm
Or
only
at
guessing
least
that because the cat comes from Wales. So
yes, this is also true. Since you have the physical copy, why don't you read the back of it for
yes, so
us?
this is a fun book, um, and this is the back cover copy. Ben must be the hungriest cat ever. One moment he was enjoying a breakfast of salmon trimmings in his home in South Wales. The next he was teleported across time and space onto the cold stone floor of an evil warlock. Locked in the warlock's tower through day and night, Ben may have to serve him for a while. He'll hate this, especially having to hunt those infernal demon rats when the warlock doesn't feed him well at all. Meanwhile, in a distant academy, a dragon is bored out of her mind. Unable to wear a saddle, no human dares mount her. Is there anyone in this land who can ride her into battle against the forces of the evil warlocks? Somehow she doubts she'll ever find a suitable bond. Unless there is another creature with enough dexterity to fulfill that role, one perhaps who is currently sprinting right out of a warlock's front door. So, as you might guess by the title and by the summary, the main character of this story is a cat,
Yes, he's a hilarious cat. Ben.
Ben the Bengal,
Yes.
who he likes to remind us is a descendant of the Asian leopard cat. Make sure nobody forgets that he is a purebred Bengal. Thank you very much.
Oh yes, I love the cat hierarchy. What are the other cats in the neighborhood that he always talks about? They would the Savannah cats.
Oh, yes, except for the
And they
savannah.
would
Yes.
talk tales about hunting in Africa or their ancestors that used to hunt in Africa. And there's like this hierarchy amongst the cat breeds in the neighborhood.
hmm And he knows he's not as big as a Maine Coon, but he is better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, before we
Uh-oh.
get too much further into
Yep.
it, what kind of tea are you drinking?
I am just drinking some good old green tea, and today I have picked a mug that has cats on it, of course, in honor
Perfect.
of this book.
Nice.
And what are you drinking?
I'm drinking dandelion root tea,
Hmm.
which is different than the other dandelion tea that I've had before. But this was
Oh,
the one that they had on the shelf. I didn't see the regular dandelion tea. This one, so the other one like tasted like grass.
yeah.
This one tastes like dirt
Because it's from Roots.
because it's from the roots. You know, go
All
figure.
right.
It's bitter in its own way. It almost tastes more like coffee. I'm not sure
Hmm.
how I feel about it,
Hmm.
but I've started drinking and just gonna continue on
You you don't
in
have to
my
finish it. It's
fall
okay.
mug, which I know it's the middle
Oh,
of winter, but this one has.
hey, people could be listening to this at any time
This
of the
is
year.
true. So for those of you, if you happen to listen to this in the fall, my mug has pumpkins on it.
It's beautiful. Hey, pumpkins are good any time of the year.
This is true. Pumpkins. Pumpkin
Pumpkins.
pie. Okay, back to Ben.
Ben the Bengal. So I think the main charm of this book is that the main character and narrator is a cat. He is a cat that gets sucked into another world and has to hunt demon rats until he escapes a warlock and meets a dragon. And I think the author did a really good job of capturing, like, if a cat was genuinely narrating, this is probably the types of things he would think about. This is probably the attitude he would have. Any of you who have cats out there know that they are very prideful creatures.
Yes.
They're not like dogs in that they need anybody's approval. They just need their own approval. Okay, thank you very much. So, yeah, I think the fact that he is very proud of who he is and what he is and just expects everybody to like bow to his whims because hello, I'm a cat. That was accurate.
Well, I love that he's a total cat in his inability to think beyond the moment.
Yeah.
Like, he is hunger driven. So no
Hmm.
matter how dire the situation, the fate of the world, if he thinks about fish, he's sidetracked. I'm sorry.
Yeah. He's like, I want salmon. Like the whole book, he's just like, I need to get back to Wales so I can eat salmon.
Yes. But he's just like, no forethought on anything. It's just like he'll do stuff on a whim because he's a cat.
Because he's a cat.
And then, like, oh, how did I get myself in this situation? How do I get myself out of this situation?
Hmm.
And he's smart in like moments of combat where it's like because cats are natural hunters, and so he'll have be brilliant at some aspects, and then he's a drama queen about the whole thing as well. Very
So accurate.
dramatic about facing his imminent death, and they're like, "You're not dying, calm
You're
down.
not dying. You're just hungry.
You'll be fine."
Oh, I can relate to that. When I'm hungry, I also don't tend to think very far ahead, except for,
Yeah,
you know what? I just need my food.
yeah,
Get a little
yeah.
hangry.
I will say the book is far more serious than I was expecting it to be. I was expecting it to be far more just straight out satire, like I don't know, something along the line of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but with
Hmm.
cats. And instead, it's like you take a world like Dragon Riders of Pern and you throw a cat in there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's like there's expectations from everyone around him that he will have character growth, and he does throughout the book a little bit. He's still a cat in the end, but he has a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of character growth, and is warned that there's big dangers coming and fate of the world kind of stuff, and he's got to learn to overcome his self obsession if we're going to
Mm-hmm.
save the world. So there's a lot more serious undertones than I had been, or storyline in general than I had been expecting it to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, he he does have a character arc, but it would have been a very different one if he were a human, and we would have expected very different things of
Yeah.
him if he were a human because he does, like you said, he does tend to be singular focused on what's happening right now
Or what he
and
wants in this moment.
or what he wants in the moment and not so much about the future. And it's really hard for him to think outside of that, but we buy that because he's a cat.
Hmm.
And so of course he doesn't think too much outside of
It's
the
part of
moment.
the humor of it.
It's part of the humor of it, but yeah, I mean, eventually you're like, okay, is this character going to change or is he going to evolve? And I mean, he does, but it's a really hard journey. Like learning to do that is difficult because nobody expects that of a cat.
Yeah.
At least in our world, you don't expect them to do things against their nature or against their instincts.
Yeah.
So even though obviously he's an intelligent cat and he makes friends with a dragon, I like that she had the spikes on her back that made it hard for any human to ride her, and so she just never like bonded with a human like she was supposed to. And she sees this cat, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna choose him."
Yeah. And then she, like, without permission, I'm going to
Without
choose
permission from
him.
anybody, she's like, "Well, I." They were like, "We could have cut your spikes." She's like, "No, I don't want you to cut my spikes." So in that way, I think they are two peas in a pod.
Yeah.
They're both like proud of who they are and what they are, and they don't really care what the humans say. That makes sense.
Like, the dragon has more, like, sense and forethought of, like, this is how the world works, and you have to play politics, and you have to be nice to be. The dragon, ironically, the dragon thinks about more about other people than a cat.
Yeah. In this
Yeah,
story.
well, and she has more understanding of the dire straits of the world and how the world works and how to play politics and stuff like that. And so she's kind of guiding him in that, but at the same time, she won't let anybody just cut off her spikes just so that they can ride her.
Yeah. So it was a very unique book in that the two main characters were both non-human, even
Yeah,
though this is a world where there are humans. So it's not like a book like the Redwall series or something where all the characters are like animals who are, living in a
yeah,
world where they operate, like Disney's Robin Hood or something.
yeah,
But it's like, no, there are humans, but none of them are the main character. The main characters are two non-humans. And so I think the author had fun playing with that idea and like just playing with your expectations because they do not think and act like humans would. And
no.
like what all can you do with that? That's a fun idea.
Yeah. Well, and in combat too, just the Okay, what would a cat
Right.
do in
What
this
would a cat
combat
do? Yeah.
situation? He can't use a sword and stuff like that. So it's like,
Right.
how does a cat fight?
hmm I was wondering when near the beginning, I was like, so what are they gonna do? Like, what is the cat gonna do? And he would get down close and scratch things, and of course after they found the crystal, he was given like a magical gift that he ended up using. But yeah, it's like, okay, no sword, no magic. I mean, no magic that you can like shoot things, or all the other Dragon Riders have staves that they have shoot magic out of and stuff. But how's a cat gonna do that?
Yeah,
He's not. So he's just riding on the dragon's back in her little spikes there.
yeah. Well, and I like how like even the human characters have growth throughout because you have the oh what's his name? The
The
student,
initiate.
the initiate that's given charge of him,
hmm
and like he's such a jerk to him at the beginning because he just thinks
Yeah.
of him, oh, you're just a cat, why am I in
Just a
charge of a cat, like,
Right.
and he just mistreats him or just doesn't take care of him because he hates the fact that he's a cat and he's stuck with him, and his girl that he likes is allergic to cats.
Right.
So he's trying to
He's
shoo
like, "Go
him
away.
away and
Go
be like,
away."
get away, she doesn't want you here. But in the end, after Ben does something ridiculously stupid, and he's one of the people that comes to try to get him out of the trouble, and then actually like really likes him in the end. And it's like,
Yeah.
Ben, you're not
Yeah.
that bad.
And I liked that there was like this shape-shifting fairy cat who was his friend, who
Oh yeah.
became his friend later.
Well, she can't shapeshift out of being a cat.
Yeah.
She's cursed. She's a human cursed to be a cat, and so they're trying to figure out a way to like get her out of being a cat. I guess she only has so many more times that she can shift into being a human.
I
Out
couldn't
of
remember.
being a cat before
She
she's
said she was
permanently a
like,
cat. Like she
I
only
mean,
has
yeah.
so many more times that she can go back to being a human before she permanently becomes a cat. So they're trying to work out a way out of this curse for
Oh,
her.
yeah.
But Ben is like, why would you want to go back to being a human? Cats are so cool.
Yeah, she just says, I'm of the fairy realm. I was once a princess, but fate changed my form. And then so she can like change the kind of how big she is and what she looks like as a cat. But yeah, she's a fun magical type character.
But then because of Ben, because the other cat, she starts like changing her attitude about,
Yeah.
oh, being a cat is kind of cool,
Being a cat's
actually.
not that bad,
Let's hang
yeah.
out with Ben and be cats together.
Be cats together, yeah. So yeah, I mean, so I would say audience wise, it's written on a middle grade level. I don't think it's too scary. Personally, I think it's fine. There are monsters that they fight. They do fight quote unquote demon creatures, but just for in case anyone's wondering, they don't mean demon in like the Christian theological sense. This is demon in like the fantasy sense, in that they are creatures from evil creatures from another dimension.
Yeah, they're not.
Kind of like they are in Dungeons and Dragons. But I know that word puts some people off. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I would say, like, yes, it's written on a simpler level. I wouldn't go straight to saying it was written for middle schoolers. It's just written in a simpler tone of voice, again, partially because it's narrated by a cat.
hmm
But a lot of the subtle humor or the jokes in it are almost more adultish, I would say.
Yeah, and I
And
mean,
so enjoyable for all, but definitely
yeah, no
somebody
age
as
group
young
is
as middle school
restrictive.
could enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, there's books always have a target audience, right? But that doesn't mean that they're the only people who can read and enjoy it, for
Yeah.
sure. So, yeah, I mean, I would say target audience, middle grade, young adult. However, I enjoyed it as an adult.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun.
Although, I will say, world building wise, I get why so many books have like, when they have dragon riders, it's all part of this organization and this, all these restrictions, and you have to be initiated into the order of dragon riders and go through all this training and stuff like that. And I get why world building, that makes sense, and that you don't want just wild dragon riders out there. But especially in that he's a cat and she's a dragon, I would love to see an aspect, like a book that did that, but they're not part of any organization, and they refuse to be part of any order, and they're just like out there. Part of me just wants kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons style. Yeah, we're just a cat and dragon out for hire.
Yeah, that's true. I guess they do that maybe because a dragon is such an overpowered
Yeah.
concept that if you're gonna use it in a fantasy realm, there has to be checks and balances,
Yeah.
just like
Well,
in any.
I think that's addressed in the book of he's like, you let the humans tell you what to do. Like you're a
Yeah.
dragon. And she explains like there's a whole back hit story of this war that's going on where the dragons and the humans used to fight each other, but now they have to like if they're going to defeat a common enemy, they kind of have to work together. And so it does have like a world building reason for why these dragons and humans are working together in this way and
Mhm.
why they had to create some sense of order and accountability. But still, I would love a world setting at some point where it's like there is like an order that you can join if you really wanted to, but I would love to see a character outside of that. Maybe it's just the rebel anti-establishment in me. And like the school, all the magic schools
Mm.
books, I'm like, who wants to go be in school for 8 years? Like, just go. Why do we want to read so much about going back to school? Like, the fun stuff
Because
doesn't
that's a
happen
way
in
for the
school.
reader to learn how the magic system works along with the character.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Aragon, he didn't go to magic school. He had a
He did.
teacher, but it wasn't
Yeah,
in a
he
school setting.
No, it wasn't a school because there were almost no dragon riders left
Yeah.
to teach him. So
Yeah, but again, those worlds or those stories where again they're learning their magic, but it's not in a school setting. I'm fine with that, where they
Yeah.
have to learn it as they go, or they have a tutor or whatever. But I'm just like, why a school setting?
I guess,
Who
well,
wants
if
to
you're
go back to middle school? I mean,
I
really?
know. Well, if you're thinking, Harry Potter, it was originally written, at least the first book she intended for kids who were in school.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a kid's book. So kids often read about their peers more so than adults.
I didn't want to read about kids going to school when I was a
No.
kid.
There were some books, and I cannot for the life of me remember the name of them when I was a kid that I loved reading because they were funny. And it was about a really silly school where everything, like people were just silly and everything always went wrong. And I can't remember what it was, but I enjoyed reading it because it's not like it was kids don't want to read about normal school things. They want to read about fun school things because
Yeah.
they can relate to it, but it's still new and different.
Yeah.
So something about it that's funny or something that's like, oh, it's school, but it's magical.
That's true. Yeah.
I know, but us looking back as adults, we're like, I don't want to go back to school. So I get that.
I mean, even when I was that age, I didn't want to read books about people in school. Like,
You were also homeschooled though.
I was also homeschooled.
So maybe that's part of
I
it.
think it was part of I was terrified and horrified at the idea of being trapped in a prison-like building.
Yeah.
As a teacher, I became even more horrified of it. Yes.
That's true. You became a teacher.
Yeah, in a public school. That was a transition.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
So anyways, this was a fun book.
It was fun.
I'm not going to say it was like the most amazing thing ever, but I enjoyed it.
It was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was very funny.
It was-
I
it was
am
just
a cat
fun.
lover.
You know, it was
I love cats. I love dragons. So yes.
the idea is hilarious. Like the
Yeah.
basic concept and premise of this is amazing in and of itself. The book wasn't like you were saying wasn't the most amazing book out there, but it was fun.
And this is Dragon Cat Book 1. So supposedly, I don't know if there's any more out there at the time
When
that
was
you
it
are listening
published?
to this.
If you open it up, when was the publication date?
It was 2020.
Okay, so
So-
you might have another one out by now.
There might be another one out by now. Yeah. So I know it's intended to be a series.
Yeah.
This is the first.
It definitely leaves off with like a kind of a wow moment. Not necessarily
Yeah.
a cliffhanger, but like a big reveal of like,
Mhm.
oh, well, I can't wait to see
Like,
where we
oh.
go from here.
Right. So like this could definitely carry on type
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah. So that was A Cat's Guide to Bonding with Dragons. Also, I love that title.
Yes.
Pretty fun. Pretty funny. I think there's actually multiple covers to this book when I looked it up, but the one I have, it's pretty simple. I'm gonna admit I'm not super impressed with it. It's just color. Okay, it's just color with like silhouettes of a cat and a dragon on it.
Okay.
Like
Because like
and-
the ebook one is different looking than
Yeah,
that.
see, I feel like there were multiple covers. So, because I usually like to give an assessment of the cover, but this is the one I have. Not super impressed.
It's
Just
it's a
gonna
little
say
more generic. It's not.
it's generic, but I mean that is a thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's not necessarily a bad thing. People clearly it it does what a cover the basics of what a cover should do.
Yeah, I feel like when I was a kid, I would have wanted a more interesting illustration. Maybe, of course, I'm also artistically
Yeah.
minded, so I always liked a good cover illustration. But not everybody has the same opinion, so that's okay.
Well, and you know what they say. Don't judge a book by its cover.
It's true. However,
We all
people
do.
absolutely do. When, as you know, as
Yes.
a author yourself, you know you must have a good
Oh
cover or
yes.
people
Oh,
won't.
I'm
Yeah,
aware that you should. I
yeah,
just the expression that nobody
yes.
actually lives by.
Nobody actually does. There have been some books that I picked up solely because the cover was cool.
Yeah. Cover does have a lot to do with it.
Anyway,
Okay. So, until next time.
drink tea and read books.